And do you think Christmas has changed a bit in Ireland?
Yes, very much so, because Christmas was very much a more religious feast. When I was young, when religion was very important, because I was born in 1940, so therefore anybody who was born in 1940 in Ireland has seen a huge change in the world, because the world of 2008 is so different to that now, and people do go to religious services. I'm glad to say they do go to them, and they get pleasure from them, and they give pleasure to the community, but they only go because they want to now. When I was young, everybody had to. You might as well walk out stark naked as not go to Mass on Christmas Day. But now the people who want to do go, and they go because it's in their heart, not because they've been told they must do so by their parents or by society. And it's very much in Ireland, when we had the huge boom there, which is not there anymore, but when we had a boom, I used to get a bit sickened sometimes seeing these fashion articles and buying gift guides and things before Christmas. There used to be maybe handbags come into some of the posh shops in Grafton Street, and it was $3,000 and $4,000 each in terms of money for one handbag. And they used to say, this is a must-have handbag, must-have. And that used to make me sick to the stomach, because why must anybody have a handbag that costs that kind of money? That's nonsensical. And I hated to think that we were becoming so greedy that we all thought this was, that this was our right, that there was a bubble that was never going to burst.
Honest to God, Maeve, it's all true. Of course, one of the short stories in your new book this year, it will be different, is called The Hardcore, and this is the story upon which the new movie How About You is based. Is that correct, Maeve?
That's right, yes. It was a story, we called it The Hardcore, for there were four very bad-tempered people, the hardcore, of people in an old people's hotel. And, every year, coming up to Christmas, they made life hell for all the other residents. And most of the residents went home or went to relations or went somewhere for Christmas. But nobody would take any of these hardcore people out because they were just so awful and gloom-ridden and all the rest of it. And then one particular Christmas, the Christmas of the story, the younger sister of the woman who runs the nursing home has to come and take charge because their mother is ill, and the matron has to go and see her mother. So this young woman, who's completely different to the old people, and light-hearted and cheerful and carefree, comes and takes over the running of the nursing home to look after these four dreadful demons for Christmas, who make life dreadful for her, until she suddenly one day stands up to them and tells them what their future will be like if they don't sort of take things easier and have more understanding. And it's a very, very, very touching, feel-good performances of four lovely actors. And one of the things that I like so much about it, its producer is a man called Noel Pearson, whom you probably know.
Of course.
Noel, and who has already won an Oscar for My Left Foot. And Noel has a great sense of knowing what is going to tug at people's hearts. And these four very, very, very ill-assorted and lonely, buttoned-up people are all in this nursing home, while the freshness and innocence and devil-may-care attitude of this young woman who more or less threatens them and says, your real old age is going to be punishing because nobody wants you. You'll die in horrible institutions because nobody cares about you, and you'll be thrown out of this place, which isn't bad. And so they all reform out of fright, and they have a wonderful, wonderful Christmas. And I've seen the film myself 3 times, and each time I see it, I have tears in my eyes with emotion about how people can in fact change themselves. And then I think to myself, good heavens, you can't be possibly crying at this, Maeve. You wrote this. This is ridiculous. You can't be crying at it. And there's a young director called Anthony Byrne, and Anthony has directed it again in a very lyrical way. But the performances are wonderful. You'd swear that those 4 people actually, you wouldn't think they were famous film stars like Vanessa Redgrave, Imelda Staunton, Brenda Fricker and Joss Ackland. You'd think that they were just 4 old people in a hotel, and that this beautiful young Hayley Atwell came bouncing into the hotel and turned their whole lives upside down. I found it very, very emotional and moving, and I think people would like it coming up to Christmas.
Well, before we get to talking about your new movie, Maeve, one of our presenters here on Radio Irish, Henry O'Donovan in Bondi Beach, Australia, would like to ask you a question. Henry says, Maeve, that back in 1990 he read an article of yours in the Sydney Morning Herald and decided to write to you, which he did. He was absolutely delighted when you wrote back to him, telling him you were quite familiar with Bondi Junction, where he lives. Henry is now wondering if you remember that.
Well, listen, I'm delighted to remember it, and he's working with you now, is he?
He is indeed. He's here on Radio Irish. He's our Australian correspondent.
Oh, well, then he's done well in life, hasn't he? I'm awfully pleased, when I do get the time and the ability to write back to people. Unfortunately, there's too many letters now because of, websites and things. Lots of people write, and I would maybe get about 1,000 letters a week, and I'm not able to answer them all myself, which is a pity because all these are from nice people who've gone to the trouble to write to you. But if you sat down and just try to write it, you do nothing else. I mean, you'd be exhausted to go back to bed after it.
Well, now, getting back to your new movie, Maeve, the film How About You, did you have an active role in the actual production of it? Were they calling upon you during the production itself?
No, I was hoping to play a little part in it. I was dying to play a little part in it because in Tara Road, I played a tiny part without any words. My husband, Gordon Still, and I played a part of two middle-aged tourists sitting at a bar having a drink. It wasn't a terribly hard part to play, as you can imagine, because we were, it was something we were quite used to doing. But we did it. I was hoping in How About You that I was going to have a line. The director told me I could have a line to say. So I kept rehearsing the line over and over again. And the line was meant to be that when Vanessa Redgrave starts to sing in a pub, as she does in the thing, she gets up onto the counter of a pub and sings How About You, the song How About You. I was going to say, as a sour-faced person in the audience, I thought she was dead, I was going to say. So I was delighted with this line, and I was rehearsing it over, saying, I thought she was dead. I thought she was dead. I did it over and over again. But as it happened, it was unfortunate. I wasn't well at the day they were doing it. I wasn't able to go at all. So I was always jealously wondering who was going to do my part, my role. And to my relief, I think, in a way, they left the line out completely. So I don't have the horror of seeing somebody else saying the words that I was meant to say.
Oh, good for you. Now, what brought this story about, Maeve? These people in your movie, How About You, seem so very familiar to me, and I've seen the movie already 2 times, one after the other, because it really is just a remarkable film. It's almost as if your characters in this story were drawn from any family or any old folks' home, really. It's very universal, this story, isn't it?
I think so. Sometimes when I think, I wonder sometimes why my books are in 44 languages or whatever they are. What could the people in the Czech Republic or in Korea or anywhere like that possibly have in common with my stories? And then I think to myself, well, maybe I'll just write about what's in common between us all. I mean, we all have feelings of hope and disappointment and false pride and despair and all these kind of things. And maybe that's the same all over the world. And sometimes I wonder, am I too shallow? Because I think, then maybe I'm just writing about what's very obvious and a cliche. But I think most people do like to remember the times when they weren't sure of everything and confident. I was fairly confident about everything because I had such kind parents who told us we were wonderful, and the 4 of us thought we were wonderful because our parents never stopped telling us that. But I mean, obviously I used to come and glance at myself in the mirror or see myself reflected in a shop window and think, hey, you don't look great. But I thought it didn't matter all that much, so I was able to get through with it all right. But I've had low feelings. So I often write about these kind of low feelings where people feel inadequate or unable to cope. And I think people like to do that. They they recognize it and they see themselves.
Live from New York City, RadioIrish.com.